What's your most NSFW family moment? When I was a kid, around 8 the PlayStation was in my parents' room and we usually went to that room to play Gran Turismo with my little brother, which essentially consisted of driving a Suzuki Escudo at full throttle, never hitting the brakes once for the duration of the race, and still whining one lap ahead from everybody. Once he got angry about something and threw his controller away, detaching it from the console, and it ended up landing on my parents' wardrobe. We were small, so we tried climbing on the thing to get to it, and ended up making a lot of the stuff on there falling on us. I felt a soft object hitting my forehead. It looked like a really big D. My brother took it from the ground wondering what that was. I took it from him and yes, that was definitely a D. Innocent me back then thought it was supposed to go on a mannequin or something, because I had never seen a mannequin naked and figured mannequins had Ds too. For some reason I instinctively threw it back up the wardrobe. But my little bro had already dashed downstairs telling my parents we found something strange in their bedroom. So my parents dashed upstairs and asked me what it was. I told them we found something that looked like a plastic horse D and threw it back up. Since then we've had the PlayStation in our room. When I was still in school, I came home with my GF at the time. We're upstairs in my room and she's giving me a blowjob. Across the room, I see the door start to slowly and ridiculously silently open. In walks my father, sees me, sees her. Most awkward eye contact ever. In a panic, I do the only thing I could think of. I point him out the door, just as quietly as he came in. He was gone again, and on that day, he gained my eternal respect. She still doesn't know. TL. DR. Dad was a bro when it counted most. When I was 18 I dated a girl. She lived about an hour away, so I would stay at her house overnight, but her parents wouldn't let us stay in the same room. So I slept in a guest bed in the basement. Being 18-year-olds we would be up very late and go to bed around 2 AM. Her dad was some kind of delivery driver and worked around 4. He came down to the basement every single morning before work and masturbated to porn on the desktop computer while I was sleeping 10 feet away. There was only a couch between us. So the first couple times I lifted my head to see what he was doing before I realized. You better believe I didn't keep it a secret from her. I'd quietly text from under the blanket, "Your dad's jerking it again," right next to me. On Thanksgiving, many years ago, my mom got the bright idea that before eating we would go around the table and everyone would share what they were thankful for. My dad told her repeatedly that he wasn't doing that, and that was a bad idea, but she insisted. So we're sitting there at the table waiting to see what happens. My whole family was in attendance. Brother, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, and my grandmother. My dad volunteers to go first, and the look on my mom's face is one where she's trying to decide if she should be worried about what he's going to say, mixed with wondering if he just decided to play along. My dad says, "I'm thankful that I'm 50 years old and I can still get a rock hard erection." Half the table died laughing. Half the table was uncomfortable. My mom was pissed, and my dad got exactly what he wanted and stopped that whole process in its tracks. Then it was dinner time. My wife and I made the very poor decision of playing Cards Against Humanity with my parents. I ended up having to explain to my dear mother what bukkake is. I had to. She would not let it go. She ended up winning the game. I was playing with my very sheltered virgin sister and she got the pixelated bukkake card. She said she didn't understand it. So I start trying to delicately explain bukkake. She stops me and says, "No, I know what bukkake is. How does it get pixelated?" My husband and I had to move in with his parents for about 3 months when we were having financial issues. As I have the very last bag in my hand ready to move to our new home, I sat the bag on the living room floor and went to the bathroom. When I came out something was going off in the bag. I said, "It's probably our son's Thomas the Tank toy." My mom-in-law dives right in and pulls out my vibrator and holds it up for like 30 seconds like she's the Statue of Liberty holding up a ducking torch. My father-in-law and brother-in-law were also right there in the room. Needless to say they still bring it up, and Thomas the Train is now code for vibrator in that family. Back when I was in high school I worked with my girlfriend on weekends. After work, we'd go back to her house and usually had 2-ish hours before her parents came home. On some days we'd take a nap, other days we'd watch a movie or fool around. etc. One fateful Saturday, our nap session turned into 6. As an aside, she was pretty loud, especially when she thought no one was home. So, we get started and everything is coming along nicely when all of a sudden there's some aggressive banging on her bedroom door. Of course we freak out, get dressed, and open the door only to find that it was her sister's boyfriend messing with us. So, we shut the door and get back to business in a much more aggressive manner than initially. Her moaning is now more like yelling and I'm humping with reckless abandon when again there's another round of banging on the door. This time we ignore it and keep going for another 10ish seconds before we hear dad scream at us through the door. He drove me home in his police cruiser immediately after that. 45ish minutes in silence with his shotgun in the back seat and a condom still on my super flaccid D. I was helping my then boyfriend's sister move into a new place and the keys were at the new house and someone needed to go get them. So my boyfriend and I drove over to get them. While we were there, we did a little exploring of the new empty house. We realized there was an attic and opened the ceiling door to let the steps down. I climbed up first and being in a skirt, gave my boyfriend a nice view. We ended up having sex right there on the attic ladder. Right in the middle we hear the door open. Boyfriend's name called out, a pause, and then the door shut. We sheepishly returned to the rest of the family at the old house to find his sister trying not to laugh hysterically. She says their mother came over to try to find out what was taking so long. Upon her return, she just loudly exclaimed they were duck-eyeing. To this day it's our favorite phrase to exclaim. I was at my first real girlfriend's house when I was in high school. We would have a sex in the basement, finished basement, when her family was home to avoid any walk-ins. After I finished it was common practice to tie the condom in a knot and avoid throwing it in the trash bin to avoid the mom finding it when she was cleaning. So I left it on top of the ping pong table thinking I could take it upstairs with me when we decided to leave. The ping pong table was right next to the couch. Well, I ducked up. Her father and little brother thought it was a good time to go downstairs and play ping pong. The brother gets to the table first, sees the used rubber, picks it up, the load of semen just dangling there, holds it out, turns to his father and says, "Dad, what is this?" The dad's face was of sheer terror as he screamed at his son to drop it, grabbed his wrist and stomped upstairs, all while not breaking eye contact with me. I guess that instilled a fear of birth control into the poor girl. She got knocked up in college by a man her dad's age. I got a cramp in that spot of muscle under the lower jaw, the one directly under the tongue, while I was eating out my GF. I stopped and fell on the floor, trying to massage the muscle to relax because it hurt like hell. My GF was super pissed because she was seconds away from coming, but she saw me and tried to help me. So we're both there in the living room in my apartment, half naked. Then I see the front door open. My parents, younger brother and a few of my teenage cousins started walking in. It was a surprise visit and they just decided to let themselves in without even knocking. My dad was first in and the sight of my GF's ass was there to greet him. I don't think I should continue this. You kinda get the picture. The morning after my wedding I bumped into my cousin in the hotel lobby and she was asking about one of my groomsmen. She wanted to know how we were related to him. I told her he was just a friend of mine. She looked disappointed by this, and at the time I had no idea why. She cheated on her new husband with him after the wedding reception, and she was bummed he wasn't her cousin or summit. Oh cute, oh cute, oh cute, oh cute. My mom chased my teenage brothers around the house inside and out with a dildo once. I had the chance to ask my brother about it later. He was pissed about it at the time, but I was like 6. And my mom was laughing so much so I thought everyone was having a good time. Looking back at it, I can see why he was pissed. Mom's dildo you. And why she thought it was so funny. Good memories. I was on a road trip with my parents in the family dog after my brother went to college. And we checked into a hotel room with 2 queen beds. My parents took one. The dog and I were in the other. My dad wanted to gross me out and said, "Now son, if you hear anything in the middle of the night, keep your eyes on that wall," and pointed behind me with one hand, putting his arm around my disgusted mom with the other. I put my arm around the dog and said okay, but I expect the same courtesy, edit, as thanks for the gold. I'll admit this here. I was not going for a bestiality joke. I was going for a masturbation joke and put my arm around the dog to try and look cool. Edit 2. Dog's name was Chip, not Colby, and this happened around 2002. I was back in town to see my family and I met up with my dad and stepmom. They were out drinking with some of our closest family friends. Well, after about an hour or so they are getting pretty drunk and rowdy. I notice the women, including my stepmom, start getting real flirtatious with each other. Mind you, there are 5 couples including my parents at this gathering. I watch it continue and I have to admit I'm a little uncomfortable seeing all these people I grew up around being overly sexual in public and in general. After a while I finally said, "What the duck is going on here?" to my parents. My stepmom started laughing and replied drunkenly with, "To be honest, you're the only one in this room I haven't ducked." Needless to say, I left quickly after that. I skipped school. I used to do it all the time because my dad worked 7 AM to 5 PM most days and was a single father. I was in my room as per norm and he came home early. Didn't want to get caught, so stayed perfectly still. My bedroom's at the top of the stairs. The computer is right at the base of the stairs. Dad watches porn for the next hour. I think he heard a squeak cause he stopped to holler up the stairs for me, but didn't budge, didn't move, didn't say anything. Just waited. 5 minutes pass. He's satisfied. Goes back to his business. Never told him. Never skipped school again. I walked in on my aunt, having sex with someone who's not her husband, in my grandma's bed, at my grandpa's funeral. Edit a word. My grandma told my whole family at dinner that she had sex on the beach once. When asked when, she replied, "When I was 76. Shared a kiss with my cousin. She kissed me and it held for 1-2 seconds because both of us were drunk and I didn't want to be rough to just shove her away. Let's just say, she had a crazy patch in her life. Initially this was cute until you said you were drunk. Suddenly it's clear you were adults and now it's hot." Had a GF over. We did the nasty. I threw the used condom into the trash. Took her home, then came home to my mom and sister laughing their asses off. Turns out our dog ran up to my room, grabbed it out of the trash and was playing with it while I was gone and they found it. Edit. Apparently this is common. Went to tell my brother that a classmate of ours had passed away. He didn't answer when I knocked, so I assumed he was sleeping and opened the door. Wrong. He was jacking off with headphones on. I managed to leave and close the door without him knowing I was there. Now that classmate is forever linked in my mind to my brother jacking off. Growing up, my brother and I used to share a room. Anyway, one night I get woken up by moaning and sounds of pain. I look over and my brother rolls out of bed clutching his stomach and runs out the room. Now imagine a chubby 9-year-old wearing nothing but loose boxers hobbling sprinting down the hall. I'm hit with this foul smell, and I look down and there is a trail of wet splattery poop everywhere. Brother finishes running, slams into the bathroom, and you can almost hear the sigh of relief dart, except there wasn't. Turns out when he went to relieve his itty bowels, he had nothing left. Best part was that he didn't realize where the poop had gone until he walked out the bathroom to see his itty legacy spread out behind him. Oh, and fun fact, we had extended family staying over that time, notably the hot cousin he was crushing on. My mom gave me a kidney and during our recovery she really wanted to see me, but the hospital wouldn't let her because she had complications from the surgery and was pretty out of it, but somehow she managed to slip out of her room and come find me. Mind you, I was on a completely opposite floor from her, so I DK how the duck she found me. But anyway, it was my first official day eating solid food, so I was pretty excited until she got there. While I was eating, here comes my mom into my room, and for some reason she decided it was the perfect time to undress. I mean, full frontal view of my mom, bush and all, and she goes, "Michael, look at what they did to me. Look at these scars." Needless to say, I will never eat Fruit Loops again and not be reminded of my mom's bush. Thought it would be a good idea to make breakfast for my dad and stepmom. Cooked it all, got it ready and brought the plates in, and thought bringing it in unannounced would be a wonderful surprise. I was not greeted by smiles. Instead, I was presented by an image that is forever burnt into my mind. My dad under the covers, obviously plugging away, with my stepmom's head hanging off the side of the bed with her eyes closed and showing me her O face. I retreated quickly, but my brain went, well, better put that in permanent storage and make it one of the clearest memories possible. Don't worry, you won't be forgetting any detail at all. I was having trouble with my radiator and had no toolbox, so I asked my dad if I could borrow his. He came over and said he'd fix it for me. I hadn't had time to clean up since he only lives 2 minutes away, so he started reading me my right about how messy my house is, etc, etc. As he was lamenting over my clothes being on the floor, he opened my wardrobe to demonstrate how much room I had. In my wardrobe, there is a box. My dad looked down at the box. The box was open. The box was filled with fetish gear and 6 toys. My dad closed the wardrobe and fixed my radiator. Was having a wank when my dad walked in. Shocked, I turned around. I was clothed. Just had my D out. He asked what I was doing. Startled, I said nothing. Are you doing drugs? That shocked me more than him finding me wanking. I told him no, and I said I was checking my balls for lumps. Oh, okay then, and left. Nothing more said about it. I shouted out loud that my dad's D was huge, at an Olive Garden. I was 4. Dad D syndrome had me pretty good. Picked up a buddy of mine from his family reunion. As we walked out, he turned around and shouted, "Bye guys. Thanks for all the cock." Then everyone turned and looked at him in horror, and his face turned bright red in embarrassment. I mean cake. I should mention he was from a very strict Catholic family. My brother walked in on me giving his friend a blowjob, which resulted in lots of drama. Not me, but my cousin, who has a bit of a drinking problem, was staying at our grandparents' house for a local festival. She proceeds to get hammered drunk and walks home. Walks in the door, goes to the bathroom and gets naked and crawls into bed. The problem is that it wasn't in the room she was sleeping in. It was in my grandparents' room. So crawled in next to my grandfather naked. My mom came home one day to a giant pair of tits flapping up and down in the computer screen with the volume on high. Coincidentally, my brother was the only one home that day. My uncle is a pimp in Gambia. He's originally from England. My cousin once went to stay with him. Towards the end of his first night there, he was told he had a present waiting for him in bed. Goes upstairs to find a young lady completely naked lay across the bed. Not sure how long she'd been waiting. 3 generations of my girlfriend's family saw my D on Christmas Day. Mum walked into the bathroom when I was having some personal time. It's been 6 months and we still avoid eye contact. When I was 12-13, at a hotel room with my parents for a basketball tournament. Gold medal, thanks for asking. They ducked in the bed right next to mine. 10 minutes after lights out. I never mentioned it to anybody. Last weekend I was visiting Nick, and lo and behold, we share a hotel room. They ducked again. When I was really young, I was playing PlayStation in my brother's room. He has this giant poster of some blonde model, half naked. Paused the game for a quick 5-minute wank. I finished up and just looked towards his bedroom door. My mum literally just walked away as I looked up. Never got mentioned ever. My auntie rang my best mate, who was mowing her lawns during that time, and asked him to duck her. He declined. It's good because even though I don't see her often, she usually slips me $50. I figure it's her way of saying STFU. Discovered my cousin is a porn star. Sorry, I won't link you to the videos or they might take longer to load for me. There was a time when my family lived in a tiny apartment. We had 1 bedroom with a double-deck bed. My parents slept on the bottom bunk and my older sister and I slept at the top. Well, one night I wake up to the bed shaking and peeking below. I realized my parents were having sex. I was like maybe 8 or 9, so I wasn't really grossed out but just really confused. My sister slept through the entire thing. Or so I've always thought.